Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Thursday, April the 11th, 2024. We're looking at the reading from this past Sunday, Acts 1, 1-14, but actually we're only focusing on verse 8, which again is where Jesus says to the disciples, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in all Judea and Samaria to the ends of the earth. Talked about the idea of you, that us, the church, have a key role to play. I want to focus today on the word power, that you will receive power. I've told this story before, I'm sure, but there's a difference, as someone once said, between power and authority. If you have authority but no power, your authority is useless. And so the story goes, the government man was taking geological readings for the Department of the Interior, and he approached a farmer and he said, I've been authorized by the government to go out into your pasture and take some readings. Do you mind if I do that? The farmer said, you can't go out in my pasture. And the government man got a little perturbed, brought out a piece of paper signed by the Secretary of the Interior that gave him the authority, in fact, to take his readings anywhere he chose. And he showed it to the farmer. He said, there, see, I have the authority to go into your pasture. And as the government man started climbing over the fence, the farmer said, I tell you again, you'd better not go into my pasture. Government man arrived in the middle of the pasture. He was setting up his equipment when the ground began to shake. And he looked up and he saw a mean old bull running toward him with his head lowered. The government man forgot his equipment, started running as fast as he could for the fence, and he cried out to the farmer, help me. And the farmer simply said, show him your papers. He had the authority, in other words, but didn't have the power to be in that field. Jesus has given us both the authority and the power. In a sense, not only the permission, but the ability to do what we've been called to do. And sometimes, we can't. I guess not. Let me back up. We can't do anything without that power. Is the best way to say it. A fellow by the name of Bill Crowder gives a very good illustration of what we're talking about here. He writes, the first winter that my wife Marlene and I were married was marked by severe blizzards. And I can vividly remember one Sunday when we woke to find that the electricity had been knocked out by an ice storm. Huddled around a battery-powered radio for news on that frigid Sunday, we heard a most unusual announcement. The announcer, before giving the list of church services that had been canceled that day due to the ice storm, said the following. The following churches will be closed due to lack of power. What an interesting comment, he writes. I knew what he meant, but I was struck by what he said. The idea of churches closing to a lack of power conjures up some spiritual parallels that directly tie into Jesus' promise of the Spirit in Acts 1:8. You shall receive power. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. Those disciples weren't really doing anything at that point. They received power on Pentecost with the gift of the Holy Spirit, but it doesn't immediately translate into anything either. If you know the story of Acts, it takes a few more chapters and some persecution actually to get them kicked out into the world. But the bottom line is that they were, and we are, unable to do anything simply by ourselves. We need power. David Platt, in his book Radical, has a chapter entitled Beginning at the End of Ourselves, the Importance of Relying on God's Power. And he goes on to say, this is where I am most convicted as a pastor. I'm part of a system that has created a whole host of means and methods and plans and strategies for doing church that require little, if any, power from God. And so he writes, I'm frightened by the reality that the church that I lead can carry on most of our activities, never realizing that the Holy Spirit of God is virtually absent from the picture. And so right from the very beginning, when Jesus says you'll be my witnesses, he first says you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. And then you will be my witnesses. You're not going to go out and do any of this stuff without power, without the ability to do it. an ability that we don't possess just in and of ourselves, but comes only from the gifting of the Holy Spirit, which Jesus has promised them here, and which then they did experience on Pentecost. So you, meaning us, we have a call to be a part of this mission that Jesus has started, and he promised us power. He also promised where that power is going to come from, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Have a great day today, and we will pick up with verse 8 again tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.